Welcome to Mentor. I'm Rachel Ford.
And I'm Marco Bertozzi.
And what have we got coming up today, Marco?
We had today another titan of our industry is Lindsay Pattison.
Her latest role at WPP as Chief People Officer. She was just the right person for that because her passion for, well, certainly for me, females as a member of women in advertising and communications leadership, as I am, she's always been a very, very strong supporter of women. But actually, the multiple initiatives that she adopted and launched across WPP, just to make sure that diverse audiences felt heard, belonged, but also a real commitment to advancement. So it wasn't just a talk the talk, it was very much Lindsay walked the walk, and that was really inspiring for me.
And also find out what connection she has to the England Rugby World Cup.
Yeah, she's got an exciting year coming up, hasn't she?
Women's World Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great listen. Before we dive in, though, we'd like to talk about something that's kind of around the news at the moment, and something that will be coming up is the Online Safety Act. I think it's going July, and we talk a lot about online safety of children. We've spoken about, our fear for kids in our society. We've talked about, lost generations and adolescents. But I think this act to hold the likes of TikTok and Meta and Instagram to account about how we do make sure that they are providing safe environments for
It feels like a
kids.
really good step forward. I think probably plenty of people don't think it's going far enough, but at least they're going to be held more commercially accountable. Yes. I think where people want to go further is they want actual people to be on the hook for failing at what they're doing. Yeah. That newsflash, as they say, they need to not allow content, inappropriate content to be seen by kids.
But from this to that, let's go to Lindsay, shall we?
Let's get Lindsay in.
Come on, Lindsay. Come on in.
So our guest today is Lindsay Pattison, a well-known and admired leader in our industry. Throughout her 16-year career at WPP, Lindsay has held various key C-suite roles and has been instrumental in shaping the company's people strategy, ensuring the client perspective is represented, and leading huge growth in the media agency Maxis. Her leadership has been characterised by her ability to build strong relationships and drive collaboration. In addition to her executive roles, Lindsay also serves on several non-exec and advisory boards, including the Rugby World Cup, which takes place later this year. And she is a past president of WACL. Very recently, Lindsay has decided to step down from her role at WPP to experience the power of the pause. Welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you, Marco. Thank you, Rach. Lovely to see you.
We always like to read the intro because,
we want to get it right.
We want to get it right and make sure we cover all the key milestones. But thank you for joining us.
And I love that suit. Can you just, for the benefit of the listeners?
And the nails.
Lindsay's got Ibiza nails on because you're to Ibiza next week, aren't you?
And everyone keeps saying, "Are you going with the girls?" I'm like, "No, I'm going with my husband." And their face sort of goes, "Okay."
You can have fun with the husband too. We know your husband.
Holidays.
He's a fun husband.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
And so, in the intro, Marco talked about your 16 years at Group M, but obviously you've worked in the industry longer, and now I'd like to go back to where it all began as well. So
childhood.
Maybe not childhood. We've only got 60 seconds. We try to say career in 60 seconds. Some people stick to the brief.
Some people don't.
It is quite tough. But how did you get into media, Lindsay?
God, I remember looking at Marco and thinking of Zenith. I know you just had Steve King in. I did interview once at Zenith, and back in the day, because we're slightly older than perhaps some of the listeners, there was no internet really. There was no access to go and find out information about a company. And I saw an ad in a newspaper.
Was it The Guardian? I remember
probably the Media Guardian on a Monday. Was it Monday?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
And it was something to do with media planning or buying, buying. And I knew that sometimes at the end of TV shows on ITV, it would say a Zenith production. And if you remember, there was a
Yes, I do remember Zenith production.
So I think I thought
yes, nothing
it was
to do with that, was it?
Yeah.
I went to an interview, just started being asked questions about where would I buy space if I was, working for Dulux. So anyway, I did not do a very good interview. I then figured out what media planning was, and then I had an interview at YNR, which then was pre-WPP days, answered the maths question because you had to do a lot of maths in media. So I did 3 years at YNR in the media department. I then went client side to Ericsson, which became Sony Ericsson, so I really enjoyed that experience client side. Brief sojourn to New Zealand after that.
Oh, I didn't know that. We'll have to go into that later.
Then I came back to PhD, and I spent about 6 years at PhD working up to managing director. Then I made the leap over to a tiny company that was becoming Maxis, which was the fourth network that Group M were creating.
I can still remember the headlining campaign about you getting that job. It's funny how you remember sort of
it felt like
moments.
a huge deal, and because I was a managing partner, I had about 60 people that reported to me, and big clients like BT and Sainsbury's, amazing clients to work on. And I think, but the idea of being a CEO always really appealed to me. So I did get there, and there were only 32 people. I was like, crikey.
I had a bigger team before.
There were 32 people and there were 2 MDs. I was like, this feels a bit top heavy. Anyway, I loved my time at Maxis. So I was UK CEO, then went on to become global CEO, then moved into a Group M role, transformation, and then finally into WPP as Chief Client Officer for 6 years, 1 under Sorrel, 5 under Mark, and then done 18 months as Chief People Officer. I don't know if that was 60 seconds, but we went wayward.
You were great.
With the dad interview.
I think that's our best. That was absolutely spot on. I think our best so far, without a doubt.
And so there's been various announcements about you stepping down and some commentary on it and so on. And I think you've sort of self-declared yourself as, always working at 100 miles an hour, and that's how you prefer to do things. And Mark Reed described you, as achieving so much and having so much energy and passion for what you do. You then talk about the power of the pause, and that's what you're sort of the next chapter, let's say. How are you feeling about that? How do you think you're going to adapt to that?
I don't know.
And will you do that thing where there's absolutely zero pause and you just feel you
want to pause, but then you get dragged into so many other things.
I mean, I think that is a big watch out. When I talk to other people that have done this, and I have the benefit of David being older and some of his friends who've stepped down, and then I think people can panic, right? And they take so many roles on, particularly advisory type roles, that actually they fill their time.
Well, they're busier than ever.
Busier than ever, but maybe doing things that they don't really. So I do really want to take some time. And as you said, Marco, I've got actually 2 non-exec roles and an advisory role. And I'm going to take on another advisory role, which will be announced in June, that I'm excited about. That's plenty.
Yes.
So I definitely want to have a pause. David, my husband, has really panicked about me getting bored because he's worried how long his to-do list will be. But I'm booking lots of things, and I would like to think if I do take a full-time job, and I probably will because I'm only 51 and 52 next week, then I think I've got one more hopefully really big job in me, but that would be for me next year sometime.
It's interesting because we talk to so many different people who are at different stages, have different plans. Either they do want to take a pause, or they do want their next big job, and it's funny how things evolve because you really don't know what's around the corner, and it may be that. I mean, Rachel talked about the next big. You thought you had one more big job in you.
When I came out of my big corporate job, I thought I did want the pause. Because my daughter.
You did some amazing travelling.
Oh, I mean, the thing is, I always do amazing travelling.
Oh, you always that's when we all follow each other on Instagram.
And when Marco and I went into business together, I said, look, just so you know, my nickname is Dude of Chalmers, and we do, as a family, that was my work-life balance. I would work 100 miles an hour, and then I would have holidays as my parenting time. But when I took my time, when I stepped away from my corporate role, I did just want to spend some time with the family, almost like, because it's quite relentless, isn't it?
Decompression.
And so I did transcendental meditation. I learned how to play bridge. I still am learning how to play bridge. And I think it's just that moment where because and then Go Again, and I thought Go Again would be another big corporate role, but actually Go Again is launching our own business, something different. Because I think, I mean, we just, you talked about Steve King, he's 65 and he's not going to stop. We talked about, Maurice Levy, he still goes in the office now. So I think...
Well, Sorrel is 80. He's still going.
Yes, well, exactly. So I think I think that's the point, that the definition of a career isn't how it was. I think we all still like to keep working, keep occupied, keep learning.
We live for a lot longer. I mean, frankly, hopefully we need to touch some wood.
There's wood.
This is wood.
This is wood.
But and I think, again, in the old days, people would be quite surprised that you stop without a job to go to. It's like, that's fine. I don't think you need, because you've got to have enough confidence to think, actually, I will be able to get another job, and I don't know what that looks like.
But, also open yourself up to the universe. I was a little bit like, I'm going to throw the cards in the air and see where they land. And actually that felt
And then
exciting.
the Joker turned up.
Wrong card. I'm going to say the top trump. Then I got the top trump.
How many card analogies can we do?
Well, we love cards. But no, it's an exciting time for you, Lindsay, definitely.
Yeah, so hopefully it will be a bit of a pause. But it's the Women's Rugby World Cup, which England are hosting. So it kick-starts on August the 22nd. And so we'll probably go to 5 or 6 games, and it's all around England, because we're trying to encourage participation in the sport, obviously with girls and women, but also take it kind of outside of the normal southeast, southwest territories. So I'll go to quite a lot of those. Yeah,
that's
games.
Perfect timing, isn't it?
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Do they sort of? So do you get leaned on for other duties during that time, or have you is it more advisory rather than will you be going to events and talking?
Well, I don't. They're working that through at the moment. I mean, there's an amazing team that will deliver that event, and it's a joy of a non-exec. It's an interesting non-exec, 'cause it's only a 2-year tenure, and most non-execs are 3. Then you normally do a double term, and it's 6. So this was very interesting. It's a local operating company formed just for this, and then they formed another one actually for the Men's Rugby World Cup in Australia. So that's already on its way. Then they'll form another one for the next Women's in the US. So it's quite interesting to have a fixed period of time to be very focused on an event. And for me, the joy was really to be involved in sport, and then women's sport is a bonus. But I would love another job in sport or another non-exec in sport, and that's where I'm thinking about. You can see my energy goes up when I think about sport.
We might have missed it, but so what was the link? How did you get involved in the rugby? Just came to you, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think that there's different headhunters that specialise in different things, and this one he knew I really loved sport, so it was the timing of arriving for. And it's tricky for people. It's always hard to get your first non-exec. Once you've got one, it becomes easier, I think, to get the other one. So I'll have a few things to keep me busy. It's the summer.
Ibiza. You already talked about Ibiza.
It all gets a bit easier.
Morocco.
It all gets a bit easier.
But going back to the Neds, a lot of people say get your first one under your belt, and then that's how you get more. But coming back to Mentor, so we're called Mentor, and it's it's about having advice, and Mark Reed on the record has mentioned how you helped him personally. How has mentorship, whether you've given mentorship or you've received it, how do you think over the years it's impacted your career, and what's your advice to others about the role of mentors, how to find them, how do you go about that?
And I sometimes get asked this question, particularly in my people role. And I'm sure we'll come back to it, but there's a difference, I think, between being a mentor and a sponsor. And I think what a lot of people will say is there are some people that you really admire that you might want to be a mentor, but if you don't really know them, like the worst thing you can do is go up and say, hey Rach, can you be my mentor? It's like you don't know them from Adam. I think it needs to be someone that maybe you've started some kind of relationship with, which can just be, I'm wrestling with this problem, can I have a cup of coffee with you? Or I heard you talk about this, have you just got some, and then you could start to maybe formalise it. But I actually think, again, when we were growing up, because we're going to sound old, you had mentors probably without realising it along the way. And then I think those mentors do become sponsors. So that the difference, a mentor kind of can tell you what they would do in that situation. But a sponsor, and we have a sponsorship programme at WPP called Summit, which is for people of colour, high potential people of colour in different markets around the world. That's about being actively involved in people's career, giving them really clear guidance, getting involved actually with their line manager, as needed, pushing them through their career and being a really strong advocate for them when they're not in the room. And I think some of the best mentors I maybe had, and I'll call out Stevie Spring, who you'll probably know, who's amazing. She was actually the CEO, I can't remember if she was the MD or CEO, let's call her CEO, of Y&I, and I was there in the media department as a grad. And she was amazing because she saw something in me. Maybe I had some degree of confidence. I had a media director at the time, James Whitmore, who was amazing as a boss, super clever, very encouraging. And she would sort of let me or select me to be in a pitch. And I was the media person at the end because it was a full service agency with my little plan. But I was in the room, right? And I was given lots of opportunities, and she was helpful and kind of inclusive and kind. And as I live quite close to her now and see her in different capacities. She was also president of WACL. I'm sure she's been president of 30 Club. So she's been someone that's always, I think, really pushed the boundaries of what, and we've got many women to admire in our industry, which we know through WACL, who've really just pushed the boundaries. And when you talk to her about kind of mistakes or stepping away from work, she sort of laughs and says, well, you haven't been fired, you haven't lived. You know, I've been fired, and this time. But I love her levels of confidence and I think kindness, and not suffering fools gladness. I think she was a great mentor as a particularly as a woman in the industry. But I think there's fabulous male mentors. When I went to Maxis, it was obviously part of Group M. Nick Theakston and Kelly Clark were my two bosses, and they were amazing. Super encouraging.
Well, learning from that, you know, we just talking about mentors makes it sound like that formal thing, doesn't it? But actually,
it doesn't have to be.
You learn from great bosses. You learn from partners that you're with. I think I totally agree with the form. I think that's the only thing I'd say. Like, if younger people were listening around, there's this sort of definition of mentorship, which is, we're going to meet every 3 weeks, and I'm going to tell you what my problems are, and you're going to, you know, and I think there's definitely, as you say, in a structured format within a corporation,
there's a role for that.
There's a role for that.
But there's much more.
But I think most people, you don't always want mentorship, do you? You might want it when you're going through a difficult patch, or you negotiate. You know, you just want to go to people, and I think that is quite an organic.
And same with coaching, because obviously there's a difference, I think, between mentor, sponsorship, and I do think sponsorship is a program that companies should try and put in place, particularly for underrepresented groups.
Isn't it?
Very action focused. And then there's coaching, and then I think in coaching, whenever I used a coach, it was actually, to your point, for a really specific problem. And normally when I'd made a big change, a big jump, and I just needed to talk things out in a really safe space. I know there's probably an overused phrase, but also it was always interesting. I can talk a lot. We can all talk a lot, but actually she would ask me such different questions, not difficult, but they were different, so therefore they were difficult. And I would always, I'd almost be my most silent sometimes, because she'd ask me something that I'd never thought about. So I loved doing that work, but I wasn't the sort of person that saw a coach every 2 weeks for a year, because that's basically a therapist.
That's what
but I would see a coach to help me, and I think coaching has got I think an increasingly good reputation, whereas I think sometimes in the past people would see it as a remedial thing. It's not remedial. It's like, why wouldn't you want to be the best you can possibly be?
You can be. And I think because you are such a, you're as you say, you're always doing something, you're always thinking, you always probably have an answer. As you were saying that in that moment, she was getting you to think, like, pause. She's actually getting you to pause, wasn't she?
Yeah, good point.
And actually to say, look, we know that you can do this and you can solve it. And I can imagine you're just such a problem solver.
Yeah.
You've always got an answer to something. You'll ask the right questions. You're obviously, your last role as people officer, you're exceptionally brilliant with people and talent about listen. We hear on this podcast quite a lot about listening. I can imagine you listen, but I can also imagine you're quite self-sufficient and you like to have the answer to everything. So maybe she was just trying to pull you out of yourself. That is an interesting one.
Yeah.
I can, many years ago in Zenith, I was put on a management sort of coaching course. 6 weeks. And one of the weeks was that I went to this coach had a farm, and
So this
is straight.
This is
up.
skeptical. This is
This is-
skeptical, Marco.
No, this sorry.
Yeah, we'd have been skeptical
At the
about
time,
whatever he was doing.
skeptical.
Born skeptic, full stop. But so we went to her farm, and then I had to go out into the field to this horse, and I had to present my next year's plan to this horse. And I'm like looking at this woman, go, "Are you effing serious?"
The horse
She's
was
like, "You got
great.
it. It's all about how the horse reacts." And I'm like, "Are you serious?" So I literally did that, and I'm thinking that is probably not the sort of coaching I'd recommend to everyone.
I did not have. There was no horse.
If you haven't spoken to a horse,
No horses involved in Lindsay's career.
Although I would quite like a sort of, emotional support animal. That might
Yeah.
be nice to
Yeah,
sort of
well, that's
stroke.
nice
That would-
too.
Yeah, exactly.
we've got members of the zoo. I've got a Great Dane,
Yeah, I've got a little lasso app.
so they're a right couple.
Yeah, when we're feeling particularly stressed, we just stroke the dog. It's fine. Yeah, we can stroke the dog.
So we're going to cover loads of high points in your career, but we always like to have a bit of fun and challenge you to think about what you describe as not necessarily your biggest fuck up, but a fuck up, something that you've maybe learned from, maybe you haven't, but what sort of things come to mind? Where's your heart sunk?
Oh
My
God,
heart's
yeah.
sunk, gosh.
I'm like,
many times. I was thinking about this, and they're mainly to do with pictures.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
right,
it's
I mean,
high
how many
stakes
pictures have
time,
we
isn't
done,
it?
right,
Yeah.
in our lives?
Yeah.
So, and there's always lessons, I think, because it's got a high pressure situation. There was one pitch, and I met the client recently, actually, and I didn't recognise her. She's in a different capacity now, and she remembered me from the pitch. And by the way, I was running Maxis at the time. And the best thing about the pitch, because it was not good, it was, I think it was UK and global. We had a UK strategy and team, a global guy. Never the twain did meet. I mean,
yeah. One of those classics.
it was not. But myself, Steph, and Jen had got up very early and had a blow dry.
yeah.
And we had
course.
very lovely long hair,
Yeah.
like yours, Rach. And we looked good,
Yeah.
and I think literally the client said that the best thing about the pitch was the fact we'd looked like we'd made an effort. I was like, Christ, this is a low point. So I remember another pitch when I was working at PhD and we were presenting across Omnicom Media Group, actually. So Colin Gottlieb was there, I remember. And I wore I don't know, it was a big room and it was quite a big deal. It felt like a big audience. I can't remember the pitch, which blanked it from my mind. And I wore a blue satin shirt. Now, Rach may understand this. Never wear a satin shirt. Never wear a coloured shirt
Yeah.
Not
when you're a bit
nervous.
stressed.
Yeah.
The sweat
Yeah.
patches
Oh, God.
were so bad.
It's
and I was
such
trying
a
to
good lesson
present.
to learn,
Oh,
isn't it?
So I always
That
say
is a
to
tough-
people,
yeah, that is-
seriously, like wear white or black
Yeah.
if you're playing, because loads of people get nervous. It's very natural
of
to
course
get.
it
So it's a
is.
very
it's
practical
adrenaline
tip.
because you want a certain level of adrenaline. You just don't want everybody else to see how much adrenaline's rushing through your body. And that's not a great.
And
way
also
to-
for the men definitely with
Yeah.
their pale blue shirts
Yeah.
and their,
Yeah.
you're like
Yeah, and somehow it felt worse as a woman because the men do
yeah,
sweat.
they
That
kind
was
of
not good.
Yeah, no.
And of
okay,
course,
that-
then you feel self-conscious. You don't present because you don't feel
course you
confident. Now, at least with the blow dry, I felt confident. I knew what I was presenting was rubbish, but
Yeah.
I gave it a good go.
Because it is about the confidence, isn't it? But,
Yeah. That's
but
what
that-
they buy. It's
yes.
mostly what you project.
Yeah, but,
I remember
yeah.
the pitch actually. Sorry, so many pitch like nightmares. But actually, with Stevie, one of the first pitches I did, I think it was the privatisation of electricity, which shows you I'm old. And we were working with a radio agency. So the moral of the story is always read the brief, right? And it's like you read the brief at the beginning and then you've
lost it. They've lost it in the work.
So we come on to, and of course, remember, I'm going to be at the very end of this pitch with my 2 media charts and then my plan. And we come up with da-da-da and the big creative idea, and there's a cartoon, Mr. Plug. Clients immediately like, we were very explicit. You can't cartoonize or make infantile anything to do with electricity because children, da-da-da.
Yes.
We were like 15 minutes into like a 2.5 hour meeting, and we were like,
We've lost the room.
I was like, oh, good.
Yeah.
Another 2 hours, and then I can do my plan that no one's going to buy.
it's seeing the
God.
faces, isn't it, in those scenarios when you see
And
the
then-
client, or if they
Oh, you'd like.
specifically
And it's like, what do you do?
out.
It's like, it's like, okay, well, don't worry about that bit. but we'll carry on, and you just think,
No,
we're not
you've
going to. You
lost
know
it.
when you win a pitch,
Yeah.
you're going to win a pitch, and you
Yeah.
know when you're not going to win a pitch.
Well, the energy and the nodding continues, not the faces and the crossed arms from the beginning. That's not a great, is it, when you pitch?
I've always thought about creative. It must be almost more than media. I think
Yeah.
it has to
Yes.
be that they put that idea up.
It's crushing.
And
crushing for
either they like it.
creatives.
It's such a
It's like
subjective
Marmite,
thing, isn't it?
You either love it or hate it. I'm
that
sure.
must be really tough.
It's really hard. I
Yeah,
think.
and also though, I suppose in a creative, you want that reaction. You want them to love it, or I suppose really hate it. You don't want that vanilla.
But you need a couple of backups. I'm
Yeah,
not
you
sure
do. I mean,
any
maybe
backups.
that's the
exactly,
lesson.
yeah.
Oh, you don't like that one? Don't worry.
The lesson is always have a backup. But we touched on obviously. So you've worked with Mark Reed and also Sir Martin Sorrell. Obviously, very very different people. What would you say, working with both of them? What did you learn from each of them? Would you say?
I think both of them, what they share, and we talked about this before, and I'm sure as you think about other leaders, and I don't know if it will change as generations change, but both of them work all the time. All the time. As we sort of said, Sorrell's 80, he's still working really hard. So I think don't ever doubt that it's really hard work, that the higher...
Yes.
Closer to the top or the higher up you go, it's really hard work. And I would think attention to detail, I think both of them had in spades. And then different personalities. Martin would, he could dominate a room very easily.
Yeah.
He built up his reputation. It didn't matter what the slides were. It didn't matter what he would hold the room and had huge levels of charisma. But he was very command and control, which is a certain style.
Yes.
And WPP was on for years was built up obviously through, not obviously, but was built up through multiple M&A. Yeah. And the company became quite sprawling, but he loved collecting and loved buying. He didn't really do the simplification and divesting.
Yes.
He liked accruing, right? And growing.
Yeah.
But he was personally really incredibly helpful to me. He put me on a program we had called X Factor before the TV show, which was for female leaders. He got me involved with the World Economic Forum. So I went to Davos 4 times, and I was represented WPP on the global agenda for the future of media, which is a mouthful. So I felt he was always helped me.
Sponsor. Yeah. He was your
sponsor.
sponsor.
He was a sponsor.
Wasn't
He was a great sponsor.
Yeah.
He was a really good sponsor. He helped me Walk the Talk, which was a program I started at Maxis.
Read about that.
And I pitched to say, can we take it globally and at a WP level? And he supported all of that. So he was fantastic in that regard. If he liked you, he really liked you.
You're in the club. You're in the club.
If he didn't like you, not very good.
Less
And
so good.
and unfortunately, I think he probably thinks less well of me now because I stayed, right?
Yeah.
And then Mark is much more introverted, but still can be highly charismatic and charming. Actually, he's quite charming. I find him funny.
Yeah.
Like we can have a
When he can
laugh
probably
and
relax with you, then,
decompress.
can't he?
Yeah, we can decompress because there's a lot
It's tough at the top.
to do, but he's so intelligent and so passionate about the work. So he's super intelligent, obviously, on digital data technology, AI, but he also will get out his laptop any meeting and play with our AI open platform and show clients how he can create campaign. I mean, not very good campaigns. Sorry if he's listening. But he can create campaigns immediately, and he's like the biggest ambassador and advocate. So I think they both work super hard. I think neither of them, if I could be harsh, are a great advertisement for balance.
Yeah. Well, I think that's come up a bit today.
Might be a generational thing.
Well, again, that's come up again, generational. Like the work, the youngsters coming in. It's like who's got it right.
Yeah.
But there is that whole thing of our mantra is always work hard and play hard. In the media world, there's also a lot of playing hard, but the playing hard is around relationship driving, isn't it?
Absolutely right.
And I think, unfortunately, I'd say maybe some of the younger people don't have as much time for that relationship building with your teammates, with your agency mates, with clients. And I think there are more boundaries. Which, as I'm saying, I don't know who's got it right, but I don't think we could ever have got anywhere without the hard work and the
relationships.
So
you needed the kind of the release, and you needed the camaraderie, right, and the understanding, not empathy, just understanding, like, and we'd pitch against each other, but then you'd still go out and have a great time, right?
I think we again, it's always this thing of like from the younger groups is what advice are we giving them, right? And that's the thing we've grappled with a bit, because no doubt the last few years there's the generational thing has probably leaned towards I come into work because I need to pay my bills and
more
pay for my external time, let's say. And but I think, you know, we've interviewed, and it is definitely generational because they're all of a certain age and experience. But the theme of hard work, which was instilled in us, I still think on balance, if there are the ambitious types out there, hard work is still going to be the answer. Like you can't really game the system too much to get round that.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Because,
and to your point, relationships as well, which is why let's get to my favourite topic, return to office.
Oh, we love that.
We love that. But I was just did a call with our global ERG Unite, which is for our LGBTQ plus community, talking about some of the challenges around DEI in the US. And we veered into return to office, but because we're talking really about the culture of inclusivity, the culture of understanding, acceptance, you know, why diversity is incredibly important, but also just helping each other out, right? If you've got colleagues in the US right now, they're having a really tough time. So actually that idea, and I said, look, I am going to veer into return to office on the CRG, because actually coming in just should make you feel better. I mean, my best friends have come from the workplace, and like, you know, if you're having a shit day, fine, you can chat to someone about it. Someone will go and buy a coffee, you might go out for a drink later, or you band together, or you find someone to help you. But I said, look, your life work is not about being a box on a screen for a half-hour meeting or an hour meeting. It's about osmosis, serendipity, just making friends. I really, really believe that, and I worry that, a younger generation may not get the benefit of that. And of course, more formally, I worry they're not going to get the L&D that is informal, on the job, sitting down, me sitting next to Rach going, how did you do that?
Majority of it, let's face it, when you start.
And we can do formal programs and we do digital programs and we have all of those. But actually, where people we know get the most value and the highest scores are programs when we still bring people together, because it's really talking to each other. So I believe really strongly. And actually on the generation gap, it's definitely a big theme, and we've just started some research, which we're going to call generation gap, but we're calling it generation bridge, because I absolutely worry about it. So it's how do we bridge between the generations of older people that think the younger generation don't work that hard, are purely functional, that don't... And then you've got the young people thinking, well, who are those idiots? And you don't pay me enough to do this, and why have I got to commute? And there's got to be a way to reframe that conversation and build bridges across. And you've got the millennials stuck in the middle, kind of going, I don't know what, they empathise a bit here and a bit there.
That bridge is a great it's a great idea. And what is your biggest piece of advice that you do give to team leaders about how do they look after the talent? How do they encourage that support system, I suppose? How do you instill that across WPP?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I feel like I keep using the words informal and formal, but, I think there's a culture of collaboration, and we have values which are open, optimistic and extraordinary. So there's a, openness and being optimistic about the future of our industry, and then, extraordinary people creating extraordinary work. So there's a general sense of, and we generally believe having people together and diversity of thought, being representative and being inclusive is just going to allow people to be their best selves and create the best work for their clients. So there's a general set the tone. Yes. And then I think there's a responsibility on, and some of this I think we've lost, like managers managing managers. You can't have just an email from the CEO saying, here's what I need you to do. Do some team bonding, go for create a softball. Actually, it's your individual group. So you'll be close to the 5 core people that you work around you, then another 10. So you need to, I think we've almost lost the ability for those smaller groups of connections that allow things to
Well, there's an expectation, and also there's a bit of expectation. I think the trouble with lots of managers is that sometimes they forget that they're in that job because they've that, you know, they've got a job, and especially when you go a little bit more senior, you're like, you're the extension of us. We need you to be, you know, on message and helping us spread the, you know, and take responsibility for your people. But I guess you've made the big, you know, go back to work and all, and
hopefully they were working from home.
Oh,
Let's go back to the office.
I know, we've got to get our words right.
Not going back to work.
There's no doubt about it. In COVID,
we don't go in an office, but we definitely work.
Well, yeah, we're working all the time. Yeah. Everybody worked incredibly hard. And in a way, it's almost like they were so productive at home, that actually when you go into the office and then you do put the other things in, like going for a coffee, bumping into somebody, suddenly we've kind of put everything in. So actually, I think people are working more than ever, actually, and I think it's recognizing that actually the office is more inefficient than home, but the inefficiency of that serendipity,
efficiency may improve, will undoubtedly, I believe, improve the quality.
Exactly, so you serendipity of having a conversation, a spark, the ideas, the creativity, the extra, you know,
and
you
enjoying
can't
enjoying
actually having
work.
having
really
some
enjoying
fun,
work.
and I agree.
Well, they'll have I think most places are going in a similar direction, so I think there may be
everyone's 3 to 4.
Like we're
broadly 4, so you know, we haven't got enough space for everyone to do 4, so we're having to flex it and be, but it was if you say 3, people will do 2. If you say 4, you start edging along. I mean,
I think once they get into it, they'll get into it, and that's you know, I think,
and we work in a creative industry, and ideas are not created on, you know, the other side of the screen, are they? And also you've touched on it as well. I do think when we're, as a pastoral care piece, it's very hard to see how someone is coping through a screen versus actually sat next to them, and actually, you know, a problem shared is a problem halved, and actually you can nip things in the bud. Things are a lot quicker.
It's much quicker.
It's much quicker. Yeah.
And if
absolutely.
Rachel's around, she'll have a silver lining to.
I found a silver lining to everything because listen, why not?
As I've discovered over the last 18 months, when my life's crumbling around me, Rachel's like,
have you looked at this? Have you looked at it from this point of view? Yeah, it's really annoying. But I mean, I also like, actually, who was it on the other week that's like, I don't know, in a way, and this just comes to my head, you're almost like Mary Poppins, like practically perfect in every way. I look at you and just think you embody everything perfect. But would you ever have done anything differently? Would you if you're looking back, is there anything that you thought, you know what, if I had my time again, I'd do that differently?
There's maybe a role I could have taken that I didn't take, but that's all I'll say.
That's the one that got away.
I think I'd have been richer.
But you know what? I also say money doesn't buy you happiness.
Would you be happy though?
But then I also do say happiness. I mean, I'm happier than ever working with Marco.
Yes.
But I also say happiness doesn't pay the bills. But I think there's a level. There's a level. I mean, how much money do you really need?
Exactly.
I mean. Yeah. You know, so no regrets. No regrets on that then, really.
A lot of people have reflected.
And I'm really hoping I don't regret this, but I don't think what's the worst that can happen? I'll just go back in a year's time. They'll have me.
No.
Listen, you will not look back. As you say, your problem's going to be holding back the people that want you to join them.
When I came out of Spotify, I remember describing it as like the sort of, in that case, the sort of green paint sort of dripping off me. It didn't I didn't leave and then I was free of it was like drip. It took weeks and actually months to just go, okay, that bit's I'm doing all this, and then suddenly sort of my eyes were open to all these different things that I was getting involved in, and then I got the chance to do a full-time role at Whaler, and I remember at the time thinking, do I want to go do I want to go back to this? And we always tell the story of so I had a chat with Lindsay. I was going for a unnamed role at one of the Group N companies, and I remember being wide awake one night thinking about it, and I realized that I was wide awake worrying about getting the job, not getting the job, which in the old days used to be the case.
Yeah.
But I was lying there
careful
going,
what you wish for. It's like winning a pitch
do I
and
really
going, we've got to deliver.
So it is, you definitely won't regret that. But I think
but I'm a bit like Rach. If you're like the silver lining, I always say it'll be fine. And again, my husband gets a bit fed up with me because my answer to everything is it'll be fine. He worries about things, and I'm I honestly think, so, there's the concept of agency. I feel like I have agency, right? You have agency. We're all in charge of our own. If you get stuck in jail in Ecuador, I reckon I can get you out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's a
Like,
good
what can you
mentality.
do? What can you do? Of course it'll be fine.
Well, that leads nicely on to, you have championed diversity. You've had very specific, more recently, roles, obviously, where that was a big part of it. And particularly women, I'd say, but not exclusively. When you think about two questions, I'm wrapping up two questions. So one is, for women out there who are, thinking about their careers and how to navigate them and so on, like what sort of advice would you give them based on what you know, what you've done, etc. And secondly, I think a broader question is, like, how do you view the world of diversity inclusion now in our industry? It's going through a lot of challenges, and so I'm just interested in your general view on where we're at.
I mean, I'm really hopeful that women now don't feel treated differently, and that's my hope. Right, when we were growing up, there would be, we went out a lot, right? There was probably way too much alcohol versus how people go out today. And there were always inappropriate moments. And if you're robust, and I would say Rachel and I probably were robust, and you normally got your friends, mates, you can just bat things away, push off the groper, or when someone, you just kind of dealt with it.
Yeah.
Comments that were, you just sort of let them, you kind of, now with hindsight, I sometimes think, God, maybe I should have said more
Spoken
at the
out
time,
a bit
because
more.
maybe there were people that wouldn't have been able to, but I don't know. I feel now that there is a culture and hopefully a society where wrongdoings or inappropriate behaviour is called out all the time, and of course I see that in my role. We have a right to speak. I see all of it, and it's really clear that what we won't tolerate. There's tons of things that are not tolerated in the workplace. So I would really hope that it is much more of a level playing field for women. And I think media has actually always been pretty good at having senior women across it. And I think there's still a role for organisations like WACO, even though it's 103 years old, to keep championing and helping women. And one of the things I'd always say, or a lesson I do think that maybe applies a bit more to women than men, but not exclusively, is sometimes just that lack of confidence, or the little voice on your shoulder telling you that maybe you can't do it. And and I think Sheryl Sandberg, her book Lean In is probably, I don't know, 12 years old now, but it did have quite a lot of empirical evidence about, like, how a man will apply for a job if he can do 2 or 3 out of 10, and a woman will only do it when she can do 9. It's like, so I think sometimes there's just having a bit more confidence to put your hand up to do things when you're not maybe able to do it. So when I mentor or sponsor a couple of people, I'll say, well, get really clearly from your manager, what is it they want you to do for the next role? What ones can you do? How are they going to, and then have a plan going forward. So I think being clear, having the confidence, getting clarity, and actually having data. Women are, again, traditionally slightly less good at having the data that backs up their points. So I think I would encourage that. I think DEI in general is in a much better place. Having just come from, I said, one of our ERG meetings, I think we have communities that help each other out. All of those communities are open to everyone, and they have allies. When we were talking about, just should be normal. Like every day should be Pride Day. Every month should be Pride Month.
Exactly.
And actually, you can celebrate different moments differently. But actually, however, everyone, I think, is much more comfortable, and I would hope and continue to encourage them to show up as they are, versus mums pretending, like being embarrassed that they have to go home because they've got to pick up their kids, or a dad wanting to take time off for a sports day, being simplistic, or someone hiding their sexuality. I don't think any of those things apply. So I'm hopeful. My big worry, and what I'm very depressed about, and it's hard to be political, we're not meant to be political, but the DEI situation in the US is really challenging.
Well, it's sending shockwaves, isn't it, everywhere?
Yeah.
And but I think we've spoken to a lot of people, haven't we, where although that has had profound impact, there are a lot of people that are continuing to fight the fight in a you just have to at a local level.
You have to adapt. Outside of the US, absolutely nothing changes. In the US, we just have to work out how anything that was seen as discriminatory under the new legal definition by the DOJ and EEOC is open to all. That's the new lens. Make it open to all. So Walk the Talk, which is the female leadership program, is discriminatory in the States now. That's what it's considered. So therefore we'll have to open it out to all.
Right. Okay.
So just try and be sensible about how we do it and how we are there for colleagues, and that we don't stop doing all of those things. We just open them out. We won't stop doing it.
So in terms of, when advice for, if we're allowed to, advice for the females in the listeners. So you're I mean, it's tight. I know Rachel's going to come on to this, but it is about sort of putting aside those feelings of maybe a little bit of imposter syndrome or whatever you want to call it, and just and find someone to help you in your practice. I was always practice my pitches aloud in the mirror. Sometimes I'd record myself and I'd listen back if I had to do a big talk. Get someone to help you. You can confide, and I would just say to people if they were nervous in pitches, men or women, sometimes you can just be disarming at the start and say, God, I'm really excited. It's one of my first times pitching. So if I go too quickly, it's just because I'm so happy I'm here. Yeah. Stop me if I
was going to say, be human.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just say that, and everyone goes, oh, and then
also,
everyone takes a breath.
Everybody takes a breath, and then you take that breath. It's like a lot of people say, if you're presenting on a big stage, tell something that's like, as I was travelling here today,
to settle you,
something to settle, something a bit personal. That's because you're just so fixated on the content. We're all human, and humans by human, especially in that pitch situation, the more you can bring that to the surface. We are actually getting quite close to the end, and I'm sure you've got so much bad advice, but is there one piece of advice that you've had across your, I'm going to say life, because this could be professionally or personally, that you were given, and you may have listened to it or not, but that was your choice, but is there a piece of advice that has really sat with you across your, I suppose, your life and your career?
I think it's more encouragement, because I think sometimes it's just understanding that you have more potential and you're probably better than you think you are. So I think learning to unleash that without being arrogant or being, but just people want to, I think people want to help you. They want to give you advice. They want to encourage you. They want to see you shine. So I think working out how you can unpick that. And I think, understanding the power of network and connection. So, one of the exercises we do in Walk the Talk is have a little you in the middle, and you have 6 bubbles around, or 8 bubbles, which is about allies. So who are your allies and who are going to help you get there? And I remember doing this exercise when we first introduced it, and I had groups. I had 5 people in each of the 8 boxes. So I was like, suddenly I had 40 allies. But so I was very focused on, who are the senior people at WPP? They were all men. Who are the women within WACL, having president, that were going to help me? Who could help me build my network in the US, because I didn't have one there? And who across the industry? So I was very thoughtful about it, and I'd say to people, don't worry about being it's not you being manipulative, it's about you being really thoughtful, because people, I always think, want to help you as long as you help them back. So the advice is, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Not again in a bad way, just of course I'll do something because I'm sure you'll do it back, because most people are really good people.
What goes around comes around, doesn't it? And I think what you've described there in your bubbles is almost like they have been your mentors across your career, haven't they? And actually some of those could be your best mates at home.
There's one group. You're only allowed one. Otherwise, which is fine. Otherwise, it's just people you drink wine with and moan. So you're allowed one, wine and wine, one with H. Yeah, that's one of those.
And of course, your part, like David or like my husband, like Stevie and Ange. You and actually when we talked about Steve King and Adrian, and there was we talked about Dags, so Simon Dalglish, and his relationship with Kelly. Actually, you don't call them mentors, but it's like that on the job, everyday mentoring. And I think we do that in our lives, and because it's not just work problems that you need help with. Sometimes it's the wider stuff. So I think we all just. And
you've taken a couple of leaps in your time, like you were talking about being CEO of Maxis. That was probably
it was a big leap,
a big moment for you.
I skipped being MD. I was like, oh
forget
that. But I think. And I think, there's been other moments, and maybe the chief people officer was also when, although maybe a sort of natural-ish step, but was probably still a little bit out of your comfort zone. Is that so? Would you say you try
take a leap? Always, that would be a big piece. Like,
it's
go
not
for that thing
comes
that makes you
naturally,
feel a bit
yeah.
nervous, or makes your tummy feel a bit funny because fizzy, because otherwise it's boring, right?
And also, because it reminds me of
should feel a little bit scared because that's excitement. Turn the scared into excitement.
That's the adrenaline. And we had a book when I was growing up, and it was like called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And I think it is that whole thing. But I think, and then there's other things, like if you're not uncomfortable, you're not progressing.
Exactly.
So you have to, I do think you have to put yourself, especially earlier in your career, I think that's definitely the time. Put your hands up for as many things as you can.
Exactly right.
Get involved in as many things as you can. Pictures, because in order to have sponsors, you need to talk about you when you're not in the room. You've
got to have done something.
They have to see you. They have to see what you are. You've got something.
You've got to be a bit vulnerable. You have to be brave.
Yeah.
You can't be comfortable and brave. You have to be brave, and you have to ask questions. So be curious. No one likes like an all-knowing person that has the answer to everything. But you can keep asking questions. People love being asked, as I said, for advice or being asked questions. Right? As we talked about earlier. I'll deflect talking about me. I know it's ironic because we've been talking about it, but I'll try and deflect them by asking other people, because I find other people fascinating.
Yeah, me too. And we found this fascinating. This has been.
Thank you, Lindsay.
I wish we just had a little bit longer, but we don't. And obviously you've got places to go. But Lindsay, thank you so very much. So many nuggets in there. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, Marco, we are coming towards the end of today's podcast, and we always like to give some final advice from my favourite book. We don't need to give it any more airtime, but what I've been really pleased about across this series of podcasts is that at the beginning, we're like going, what are we doing? Reading out this book, to now I think you're going to enjoy reading these quotes, aren't you, Marco?
No,
you don't like philosophical things, but I think you're getting there, Marco, aren't you?
I am getting used to it, I think is how you describe it. So today we're going to hear from Niklaus Zenström, who apparently is Swedish entrepreneurial royalty. He founded Skype, which is probably the most famous of the businesses, and he's now Europe's leading tech investor. And this was interesting, maybe because I also think about all the thousands of people that we have in the TheZoo.London collective, and how they're thinking about life at the moment as consultants and thinking about what's next. And so his advice: if you see a problem and you get irritated by that problem, then consider if that is something you can fix by becoming an entrepreneur. Don't accept it. Don't just do what everyone else is doing. Be contrarian. Challenge the current way of doing something. Not only will you find that more exciting, but that sense of mission and purpose of having an impact you can be proud of means you are more likely to be successful and to enjoy the journey more.
Do you know, I think that sounds like Marco. You, contrary.
Yeah, there's a lot of words.
But no,
there's a lot of words that would attach to me.
You see a problem like with the TheZoo.London, and
I moan about it.
And do something about it. But I think you could be, you are a UK leading entrepreneur. Marco,
follow me on LinkedIn for all of my complaints about the world.
But what a shame, that is all we've got time for.
Mentor is a Viral Tribe entertainment production. Don't forget to give us a follow on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify.
Join us next time for more pearls of wisdom from Mentor. Until next time.
I think we always do that quite fluidly, don't we? Yeah.
Okay, we're proud of that bit.
Yeah, it's good reading.
Good reading. Right, that is it.
Thank you.
Thank you.